Isaiah chapter 58 and verse 1. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgressions, and the house of Jacob their sins.
Copyright disclaimer. This content does not belong to Bible Chronicles or claim this intellectual property. The content provided today has and always will belong to the content owner. Bible Chronicles does not have any affiliation with the owner of this property. As mentioned, Bible Chronicles did not intend to make use of any material for the purpose of harvesting gain. However, Title 17 of United States copyright law states material in use can only be done when it's for theological or general educational purposes, and thus Bible Chronicles believes that this principal material falls under fair use, which honors protection under Section 107 of the same U.S. copyright law.
Estamos aquí, oye, que estamos aquí. Mírame, estamos aquí. Desde hace rato, cuando ustedes llegaron, ya estaban las huellas de nuestros zapatos. Se robaron hasta la comida de gato y todavía se están lamiendo el plato. Bien encabronados con estos ingratos. Hoy le doy duro a los tambores hasta que me acusen de maltrato. Si no entiendes el dato, pues te lo tiro en cumbia, bossa nova, tango o vallenato. A lo calaboy y bambú, bien frontú, con sangre caliente como Timbuktu. Estamos dentro del menú. Tupac se llama Tupac por Tupac Amaru del Perú. América no es solo USA, papá. Esto es desde Tierra del Fuego hasta Canadá. Hay que ser bien bruto, bien hueco. Es como decir que África es solo Marruecos. Estos canallas se les olvidó que el calendario que usan se lo inventaron los mayas con la Valdivia precolombina. Desde hace tiempo, este continente camina, pero ni con toda la marina pueden sacar de la vitrina la peste campesina. Esto va para el capataz de la empresa. El machete no es solo para cortar caña, también es para cortar cabeza.
Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerdes. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerdes. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. 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 Te muerde, te muerde.
Los paramilitares, las guerrillas, los hijos del conflicto, las pandillas, las listas negras, los falsos positivos, los periodistas asesinados, los desaparecidos, los narcogobiernos, todos los que robaron, los que se manifiestan y los que se olvidaron, las persecuciones, los golpes de estado, el país en quiebra, los exiliados, el peso devaluado, el tráfico de droga, los carteles, las invasiones, los emigrantes sin papeles, 5 presidentes en 11 días, disparo a quemarropa por parte de la policía, más de 100 años de tortura, la nova trova cantando en plena dictadura. Somos la sangre que sopla la presión atmosférica. Gambino, mi hermano, esto sí es América.
Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerdes. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerdes. Si quieres mi machete te
viene a decirnos con mucha firmeza y gran convencimiento lo mismo que nos decía en el siglo XVIII el barón de Holbach, ¿no? Un filósofo francés de origen alemán. Si nos remontamos al comienzo, entonces hallaremos que la ignorancia y el temor crearon a los dioses. La fantasía, el entusiasmo o el engaño los adornaron o desfiguraron. La debilidad les rinde culto, la credulidad los conserva, la costumbre los respeta y la tiranía los apoya para que la ceguera de los hombres sirva a sus propios intereses.
Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, so let's see what we got. Boom. Listen, family, there's a reason why I'm calling this today Mexican hate or Mexican hatred. I have a interesting topic. I'm just going to go through it rather quickly to the best of my ability. I'm not going to be too long-winded. I'm going to show you this particular video that came to my feed. At first, I wasn't going to listen to it because of who it was, but I'm like, you know what, hold on, let me listen to this real quick. Maybe there's a reason behind this coming to my feed. So I started listening to it, and it brought me back to some of the videos I had previously watched, some things that I kept that I didn't show. And you know what better way to express this particular hatred towards the Mexica people than by showing you, having you listen to them, and then I'll bring out books to give you some confirmation. So we're going to go through a few today, not too many, just a few pages highlighted. I'm not just going to randomly read. We're going to look at open veins of Latin America, oppression, privilege, and resistance, and then also harvest of empire. You guys that do read, you may know these books. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the American Holocaust. These are important books that you guys need to reflect on. And again, it's all about history. Saying, hey, man, for you guys that don't like my channel because you think I'm too harsh or I don't have some kind of compassion and shit, you must assume that. You assume it wrong. You just don't understand the way that I communicate. Maybe that's because it's not my first language. You know what I'm saying? Who knows, man? But anyhow, for you that are here, you one individual that's here, appreciate you. Let's get going. So here's this gentleman here. But before we do this video, right? So his video is the truth behind the U.S. government targeting Mexicans. Okay, so that's how he intros his video. I want to give you a historical fact de que estos pinches hijos de Esau, sons of Edom, worshippers of Odin, those that dwell within the houses of Valhalla. Hey, what up, bro? It's good to have you. I don't know what that emoji means. Anyways, good to have you. Let's see. Fuck, I forgot my train of thought. Anyways, let's begin. I just want to show you what is obvious to our face. These are the sons and daughters of Esau, worshippers of Odin or Edom, those that dwell or want to in the houses of Valhalla. I'm talking about them, okay? A lot of people have benefited from them. Lots of people have benefited from their hatred. That is a fact. I need you to understand that fact. Yeah, Edom, Esau, sons of Cain, children of the fallen, etc. Right. The spirit of Cain. Damn, that's a good one. I forgot about that one. I forgot about that one. Thank you. Good. Thank you, bro. So we're going to see from their own words, from their own historical books, and even books that they've allowed us to also print ourselves about ourselves, what has occurred. And a lot of nations have benefited from these people here. Predominantly the sons of Canaan and daughters of Canaan. We're predominantly dealing with Edomites and Canaanites in power, struggling to overcome each other in some political way, or even through sorcery or secret societies. Oh, yeah. I thought I said something, but I don't think I'm funny, bro. And sometimes when people think it's certain things I say is funny, you know, so I misunderstand you. My bad. Let's begin.
Has moved from the fringes directly into the halls of government itself. The New York Times dropped this explosive new report calling out by name members of the Trump administration who expressed opinions that would probably get most people fired, like Darren Beattie, who previously wrote on social media, quote, "Competent white men must be in charge. Unfortunately, our national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men." He's now a State Department employee and head of the U.S. Institute for Peace. And Paul Ingracia, who has posted on social media, quote, "Exceptional white men are not only the builders of Western civilization, but are the ones most capable of appreciating the fruits of our heritage." He is now Trump's pick to lead the office of special counsel. And Kingsley Wilson, who said, quote, "The great replacement theory isn't a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's reality." She's now the Pentagon press secretary. The far right.
Pentagon press secretary. You know, I'm more biblical than anything else. But I do know that in science. Hey, good to have you here, sis. I know that in science that they created, they believe that Darwinism is in effect. Okay, they truly believe that. I'm not saying it. They say it out of their own mouths. Bocas. What is Darwinism? Please, somebody, please drum roll. Somebody drum roll. Hold on a second. The theory of evolution of species by natural selection, advanced by Charles Darwin. Now, for a very long time, sons and daughters of Esau, those that live among Valhalla, have believed this theory. It was okay at one point. They even based it on eugenics to this very day. Like, that's just why they talk like, oh, you know, intellectuality. Trust and believe, family. Trust and believe. There wasn't one thing that I competed with them on a, let's say, business level that I did not totally destroy them. And that's why the envy was there. Specifically, I'll say in sales at a high level. They hated seeing that last name because apparently they connect that last name to us, you know what I'm saying, only. It's fucking Spanish last name because that's where it comes from. But, you know, whatever. It's neither here or there. The point being is that so-called intellectuality did not work against me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really did not get impressed. Yes, I didn't get a chance like other people. Unfortunately, it is what it is, Ben. It is what it is. I'm not going to argue about those shits. You do got me on that fact that I don't have a degree. I got you. But that's it. So let's continue. Darwinism is a theory of biological evolution developed by Charles Darwin, which posits that species evolve through natural selection, acting on inherited variations. So their concept, and they've even argued that the replacement theory, right? They believe it, truly believe it, because supposedly we are outbreeding them. And they don't blame that on Darwinism, okay? They don't blame that shit on Darwinism because they sit back with their theological concepts and assume that because I'm a Protestant, I'm prosperous, that means God's dealing with me. So he chose me because I'm much more better than you. But in reality, you also relay the fact that Darwinism is your science. So I'm kind of confused here. We obviously see that Darwinism is in effect. So by our people multiplying, that's life, biology making its natural fucking selections. We're not telling you guys not to reproduce. We're not telling you guys to go have abortions. Matter of fact, we're not even telling your biological body of your women to, have issues with having babies. We are not doing any of that. That's Darwinism right there. If we go by what you believe, and this is why there's talk like this, and a lot of people, listen, I grew up in the hood, fam, and I saw people die, okay? Unlike a lot of you guys that talk online about political stuff and you're offended by certain things, you've never seen a person get stabbed or shot. I unfortunately have, okay? Growing up in the hood, sometimes you experience those things. Thank the Most High, our God, that never happened to me. But was I close? You damn right I was. So I never want to see or experience anything like that. And what that occurred was horrible as hell. But you cannot deny the fact that some people, what they've said will always stay in history.
Nicaraguans, El Salvadorians, Panamanians, Venezuelans, Chileans, they should all go home.
Oh, really?
If they're here illegally, yes.
But like I said before, these people have been devastated by, in the past, these countries are poor.
I don't care. Go fix your own country. Don't come to our country.
Because we fucked that up in the first place.
Hold on a second. How do we screw up El Salvador?
See, this is where I'm so baffled by the fact that a lot of people act like they think that they're so fucking smart, and the audacity for someone like this that supposedly is educated to say, what did we do to El Salvador? You get what I'm saying? To say, or even ask, what did we do to El Salvador? We're like, what the fuck? What do you mean? So today we're going to go through some pages about those things. El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras, all of those regions are only in effect because the resources that have been consumed by those regions. We can even start with, like, let's say, the biggest company at one point regarding fruits, like bananas. You know what I'm saying? You don't get fucking bananas from Florida or Georgia or South Carolina or Texas or New York or Oregon or Kentucky or Ohio. You don't get no fucking bananas from there. You get them from Central. Central is where you get them from. Now I'm going to close these slowly because I don't want my computer here to get messed up. Because apparently it has been. I named the class Mexican hate or hatred, right? That's what I named it. But what I also want to point out is who that hatred is coming from. And that hatred is very serious and it's also hypocritical. Because, in one side of these sons of Odin, right, or Edom, sons of Esau and daughters of Esau. And on one side of their coin, they're complaining because you guys are supposedly doing a hate speech. On the other side of the coin, they're saying we're not saying hate speech, but then I catch the people that are accusing those others of hate speech are actually doing that talk. Check it out.
For the kill shot. The kill shot with an ambush, deadly, because he doesn't see it coming. This is when you say, now you're going for the kill shot. The kill shot with an ambush, deadly, because he doesn't see it coming. This is when you say, Dr. Fauci, you funded risky research at a sloppy Chinese lab, the same lab that sprung this pandemic on the world. You know why people don't trust you, don't you? Boom! He is dead. He is dead. He's done. Now, how you do that? 30 seconds. That's all you need. 30 seconds. Now, you get that footage to us. You get it to Fox. You get it to Human Events. You get it to Breitbart. You get it to Daily Caller. You get it to the Turning Point pipeline. Imagine Tucker Carlson teases out of the A block. Coming up. Brave college student confronts Lord Fauci at dinner. Exclusive footage, right back. Get us that. That's what we want. That changes the whole conversation of the country. I've authorized it. Just make sure it's legal.
Even to their own. Even towards their own. So it shouldn't be a surprise to you. Right? Let's explore this. This is from the page of the Holocaust. Oh, hold on. I have them over here. Okay. I got you. Hold on a second. What the hell, man? I don't know why it's not showing it over here. Come on, bro. Don't give me this shit today. Nah, I don't want to save it. I don't want to do all that. Gosh, give me a second. God, man. Come on, bro. How can I get it to another? All right, fine. I'll fucking download your app. Oh, great. All right, fam. So let me get you this page real quick. It's stupid. I don't know why I have to do it. Okay, so this is from the book called American Holocaust. All right. Genocide. During the course of 4 centuries, from 1490s to 1890s, European and white Europeans, listen to that. So now when you hear this differences, it should tell you a lot. And white Americans engaging in an unbroken string of genocide campaigns against the native people of the Americas. Pictured on the following pages are the results of the first of these slaughters. Now, keep in mind, I mentioned that a lot of people benefited from this hatred. To this day, they still benefit from it. And then now they're blaming it because it's happening to them. But you sure weren't saying shit when you were benefiting from it. We're talking about 400 years of that hypocrisy. And all of a sudden now, you want to go sing around a word that starts with a capital R. Like really fucking serious ignorance or stupidity. One of the two. Pictured on the following pages are results of the first of these slaughters, the Spanish depredation in the West Indies and Mesoamerica under the initial command of Christopher Columbus, and what conventionally, though incorrectly, is regarded as the last of them, the U.S. Army massacre of Sioux Indians near a creek called Wounded Knee in South Dakota. These scenes are representative of thousands of other such incidents that occurred, and in some places continue to occur, and in the Indies and in the South. in Central and North America, most of them bloodbaths that have gone unnamed are long forgotten. And that's true. Nah. You know what? Maybe we just should change the channel and talk about some, I don't know, cholo talk. You know what I mean? Or some street shit. Why not? Maybe we'll talk about rap music instead. Or we'll just go to the whole boxing stuff. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, this doesn't matter anyways. This is forgotten history. So why should you even consider it, right? I mean, I still can't. I'm still baffled by how some people go and listen to lives on people that are just kind of talking or just reading their posts and shit. That's like, it's weird to me, bro, that you guys can be fed with so simple things. The illustration of the Spanish cruelties are by Jean Theodore and Jean Israel Debray from a 1598 edition of Bartolomé de las Casas' brief account of the destruction of the Indies. The accompanying captions are drawn from Las Casas' descriptions of the events he witnessed, with two exceptions. The photographs from the Woodney massacre are printed here with the permission of Nebraska State Historical Society. The exceptions are the photographs of Bigfoot from the National Anthropological Archives of the Smithsonian Institution, and the photographs of General Colby and Zintak Lanuni, with his printed by courtesy of Denver Public Library's Western History Collection. Quotations in the captions for Wounded Knee photographs are blah, blah, till you get the point. Now let's go to page. I'm gonna have to save it, so page 177. Bear with me. I'm not sure why it's doing this, but we'll deal with it. Page 177. Just gonna do the highlighted part because all this stuff matters. Sex, race, and holy wars. So we know that Christian doctrine or paganism really started with the Roman concept. That's the Roman rule, Roman government. Roman government created Christianity. That's a fact. It was nothing to do with the apostles or anything like that. Christianity, Catholicism, that every other religion branched out of, was started by Roman government. That is a fact. Thus, the influential church father Origen was outspokenly opposed to war, while the other Christians were members of Marcus Aurelius' Thundering Legion. Similarly, the New Testament composition on the matter, from pacifism to warlike zealotry. The Old Testament, however, is unremitting, and when the Lord thy God shall deliver thine enemies before thee, Deuteronomy 7:2 and verse 16, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy on them. Thou shalt consume all the people which the Lord thy God shall deliver thee. Thine eyes shall have no pity upon them. So these people, but let me continue. And later in Deuteronomy 20, chapter 20, verse 16 through 17, the passage noted earlier that was cited so gleefully by Puritan John Mason. We know what that's about, and we understand that the so-called self-proclaimed Jews brought Mason to the Americas as justification for the extermination of the Indians. You see this here? So these so-called Christians from Roman time who use a doctrine that supposedly Jesus read John 3:16 to them, okay? And that he opened the covenant to them because, the laws were done away with and, they were cruel. These same people then take this concept and go and slaughter millions of souls. And you want to sit here and act as if Christianity is righteous? That's crazy. What up, V-Ladder? Shalom. Jeremías, buenos días. So they used the Bible. Now, these guys, Puritans, as far as my understanding, maybe they are, I don't know. Maybe they're converts, crypto Jews, you know what I'm saying? We don't ever know anyway. But anyway, but as far as I know, they're Puritans. So that means that you weren't the actual real Israelites. So that means that you believe that Jesus opened the door for you because of John 3:16. So then that means that you were given the opportunity, the mercy to come into the understanding. However, you fucking piece of shits didn't do any of that. No, you used the Old Testament laws to then oppress other people to make them believe what you believe. But did Jesus make you believe in his religion by force or through mercy? You see, this is what I gleefully laugh at your ass. But again, we are just getting started. So let's begin the video.
Why does the USA keep targeting Mexicans? Well, it's not at random, and it's not new. From pretty much the beginning, Mexicans have been painted as the villains. And through it all, there's been only one reason driving this entire system to be this way. By the end of this video, you'll see the truth that no one involved ever wants you to see, and why this war on Mexicans should have never began in the first place. First, we need to start with the deep roots of racism. America's story with Mexicans didn't start at the border wall. It started way back in the 1800s when the US took half of Mexico's land during the Mexican and American War. Overnight, Mexican families who were Mexican one day, the next became foreigners, even though they didn't move an inch. That set the tone. Mexicans weren't treated as neighbors in the USA. They were treated like outsiders in their own homes, where they lived forever, for generations, for centuries. By the late 1800s and 1900s, Mexicans were pushed into the worst jobs and paid a lot less than the white workers. In Texas, whole towns banned Mexican kids from going to school. And even restaurants even went as far as putting up signs saying, "No dogs, no Mexicans." If this sounds extreme, remember that this was the same country that was putting up whites-only water fountains. Mexicans got lumped into the same second-class treatment as black people and other non-whites. This racism went much farther than signs, though. There were lynchings across the Southwest where mobs killed Mexicans in public. And some
Read about that in a little bit more.
Some historians even call it the forgotten genocide. The stories got buried back then till this day, but the culture of full hate and lies, they just stuck. To this day, Mexicans are still cast as the problem. On TV, movies, and even popular politicians say this, and people even believe it still. Think about it. When people in the 1980s were worried about drugs, who got painted as the face of it? Not the Wall Street bankers. And we all know what they were doing in bathrooms and fancy bars back then. But no matter what, it was the Mexicans at the border that were the problem. Politicians had no problem pointing fingers to the South. And they did it because it worked. They knew it would because it was from the same old playbook that has been going on for generations. This deep history of racism shaped laws, schools, neighborhoods, all across the USA. And once you set up a group as a villain, it's easy to target them again and again. That's the deep roots of why Mexicans became the face of immigration raids.
That's a heavy point. That was a heavy point. So I thought, you know what, man, what better way to express it than to show you guys some, the stuff that we've been reading or stuff that maybe we missed out. This is also in the same book, Pestilence and Genocide. This, I believe, page 119. Let's read right here. America's revered founding fathers were themselves activists in the anti-Indian genocide. George Washington, who was a Mason, by the way, in 1779, and by the way, there's records here. There's records of this. Hold on, let me see something. Hold on. Hold on a second. Give me a second. Give me a moment. Hold on. Check it.
Legend of the Craft, Legend of the Temple.
I mean, on the Masonic and the Order of the Eastern Star, the back of that there.
Photo of George Washington's sash worn in the Revolutionary War at the time he resigned his commission in 1783. Oh boy. The building of Solomon's Temple. Oh look, this is George Washington's Masonic apron. This is George Washington's Masonic apron.
This is George Washington's Masonic. George Washington. I want you to know that just like how they use the Bible against us, the Bible does say something about the fact that the dragon will make war with the saints. Okay? And this dragon will target 2 prophets. There's only 2 nations of people right now that are really that had got prepared and are getting genocide and that have been propagandized in our faces like it's not a big deal. And that has been occurring here for a long time. So the dragon, Satan, Lucifer, the enlightened one, the sun god, right, will make war with the saints. And who's pushing this Luciferian concept? Freemasonry through religions, because you can be a Catholic and a Freemason. You could be a Christian evangelical. You can be a Muslim. You can be. I'm telling you, they don't disregard. They don't. What's the word? They're not denying you that privilege. They want you to believe in a God concept. That's what they want, because eventually they'll let you know who that actually is, who they worship. The whole Sephiroth tree, right? All of that stuff. Let me blend this in, because I think this needs to sink into how deep this rabbit hole has been. Because it was through these people, right, Masonry in Mexico and up here in the north, where those people are the ones that really dealt with the transactions of 1848. If you guys really, really think it was based on one president, nah, man. These people in these lodges were already working together to make it in effect. America's revered founding fathers were themselves activists in the anti-Indian genocide. Now, keep in mind, George Washington in 1776 instructed Major General John Sullivan to attack the Iroquois and lay waste all the settlements around, that the country may not be merely overrun but destroyed, meaning the people, urging the general not to listen to any overture of peace before the total ruins of their settlements is affected. Now, keep in mind that Prince Hall Freemasonry, meaning black folks, black people, were also dealing with Freemasonry. So, don't believe the hype, family. Both of these mofos were involved. And both of these mofos felt like this towards you, because you can see that a lot do. Not all of them, but a lot do. Sullivan did as instructed. He reported back. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. Right now, with the whole immigration situation, who is the majority of the people that are actually out there helping you guys with the whole, support, like, the strikes and all that? It ain't Prince Hall Freemasonry people. Damn well it ain't. It's not people with, how they say, melanated skin or woolly hair. People become who they are when they don't have to worry too much about themselves anymore, being hated upon. But you still have to keep the image. Wrote early in one account, from the character of a garden to a scene of drear and sickening desolation, the Indians, this writer said, were hunted like wild beasts in a war of extermination. Something Washington approved of, since, as he was to say in 1783, the Indians, you Mexicas, you Taínos, Arawaks. I'm not going to call you guys Native Indians, Native Americans no more. Those that call yourselves Native Americans, you probably may be a $5 Indian. If you don't, this is why they're making fun of you and they're walking all over you, these wobbles. Because you don't even want to listen to us. Go ahead, deal it on your own. Ay, arréglate tú, güey. See how far you get. We're a little different from wolves. Both being beasts of prey, though differ in shape. Second, the page 120. It continues or Jefferson, for example, who in 1807 instructed his Secretary of War that any Indian who resisted American expansion into their lands must be met with the hatchet. And if ever we are constrained to lift the hatchet against any tribe, he wrote, we will never lay it down till that tribe is exterminated and is driven beyond the Mississippi. You see, driven beyond the Mississippi. But then what happened after that? The Trail of Tears, right? So then they're being pushed back even more. And who benefited from those lottery lands? Black and white people. The conquistadors. Because it's true. Black and white conquistadors. These were not offhand remarks, for 5 years later in 1812. Jefferson again concluded that white Americans were obliged to drive the backwards Indians, quote unquote, but the beast of the forest into the Stony Mountains, past the Mississippi, right? But the Trail of Tears happened in 1830. And we also have records of people owning slaves in 1830. They were not just white people. Melanated people with woolly hair had slaves. In reality, I wonder, where the fuck is the reparations of all of these native people here that you took lands from? You're asking for reparations. The reparations should be going to these people here in the north that you took lands from, because, again, Prince Hall Masonry was already in effect. You've been owning slaves since you got here. I do believe there's maybe reparations involved. So if you guys are using the courts to get legal binding documents officially authorized, that puts you in the position of those legal same binding documents to be examined. I believe that if you guys are really taking this to court, that the opposite party should start demanding DNA for preservation purposes, just like the white man did it. Indeed, Jefferson's writings on Indians are filled with a straightforward assertion that the natives are to be given a simple choice to be extirpated from the earth, extirpated from the earth, or to remove themselves out of the American way. You see that? Self-deportation, or we'll deport you as. It hasn't changed. And who is doing the deportation? Sellouts, black and white folks. Money matters more to you than humanity. But I guess the hatred is really obvious right there. That's why the guy said the forefront of immigration is who? Mexicans. That's the forefront of immigration. When they're pushing immigration, you got to mention the Mexicans.
You set up a group as a villain, it's easy to target them again and again. That's the deep roots of why Mexicans became the face of immigration raids, prison sweeps, and border crackdown. Now let's talk about the...
Yes, sirree. Border crackdowns. That's crazy. Let's finish it real quick. Had the same words been enunciated by the German leader in 1939 and directed at European Jews, they would be engraved in modern memory. You know, we see the same effect today, that they should be extirpated from the earth, pursued to extermination. You know what I mean? Bring the hatchet if they don't want to submit to our ways. That's basically what's going on in Gaza right now. Same talk. It's the same talk. And who brought masonry? The self-proclaimed Jews. It's the same talk. It's the same apparatus. It's the same method to their madness. Claim them to be insects, impure, dirty, scum of the earth, below dirt, less than animals, or even around that amount. Kick them out. They're just like beasts. They're backwards. They don't belong here. We want their land. Had these same words been announced by the German leader in 1939 and directed at European Jews, they would be engraved in modern memory, since they were uttered by one of since they were uttered by one of America's founding fathers. However, the most widely admired of the South slave-holding philosophers of freedom, they conveniently have become lost to most historians in their incessant celebration of Jefferson's wisdom and humanity. Make that make sense.
The historic labor demand. Here's the part that nobody likes to admit. The USA has always wanted Mexican labor because it was cheap, it was fast, and it was really easily replaced. When there were tracks for trains to lay in the 1800s, Mexicans were brought in. When farms needed workers during World War II, the US launched Barcelo program in 1942. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, but there was a program. This program pulled in millions of Mexican men to work the fields, keep crops moving, and make sure that America's food supply didn't run dry. Sounds like Mexicans over the years have really helped a lot. And it sounds like a win-win, right? Except when that program ended in 1964, the demand didn't stop. Farmers still wanted the same labor for the same price. Construction still needed workers. And hotels and restaurants still leaned on that workforce too. So Mexicans, they kept coming. The US didn't stop using their labor. They didn't want to stop. They were addicted to it. But what they did was slap this label on Mexican people that were in the US. That label is the illegal label. And it was like a switch. One day Mexican workers were guests, and the next day they were criminals. It was like same hands, same work, but they all had a different title. This is why so many older people in the US remember growing up around Mexican workers in the fields, kitchens, or on construction sites. They weren't hiding in the shadows or running from ICE. They were visible. They were working hard and doing most jobs that Americans refused to touch. And yet politicians kept opening their big mouths and saying that these workers were a threat to jobs, a threat to wages, and a threat to the country itself, and national security threat. But the truth, they were holding up entire industries. If there was no Mexican labor, then there's no crops on your table, no new homes getting built, and no cheap hotel rooms for that vacation that you want to take. This is the contradiction that built the whole immigration game. The US depends on Mexican labor while pushing away the very same people it relies on. And that same contradiction is still running till today, fueling a system that flips reality upside down. It's completely backwards from how it should be, and far from what's actually right. The US built its own cycle. Invite the Mexicans when you need them, and criminalize them when it's convenient. And that cycle leads straight into targeting. This
very, very obvious, isn't it? And common. Let's continue with another book. Oh no, American Holocaust. Sorry, same one. Check this out. If this was early California's version of somewhat Spanish defenders later would disingenuously dismiss as merely another black legend, it did not last long as it did its counterparts on the continent in the South. In 1846, the U.S. militarily occupied California. 2 years later, at Guadalupe, Hidalgo, Mexico ceded the land over to the American control. In addition to the 2 centuries of previous evidence adducing the genocidal practices of Britain, the U.S. towards America's native people. That's here. Let me continue. Let me just kind of skip real quick. I'll go here. Spaniard black legends defend the part alleging that other white treated Indians just as badly as did the Spanish. And what we find is that on this point, at least difficult though it may be believed, Spanish are correct. And by 1845, the Indian population of California was down to no more than a quarter of what it had been when Franciscan missions were established in 1769. That is, it had declined by at least 75% during the 75 years of Spanish rule. Now, you guys want to be mindful of this, by the way, And this is where I really mean, me personally, like I fucking laugh at wobbleism. I really do, man. I think it's such an idiotic movement, because when you really consider the history, I mean, there's a book called hold on a second. Give me a moment. I'm trying to look for it. Where are you? I was just looking at it a little while ago. It's called, here it goes. And again, the reason why I'm mentioning them too, because technically right now it's most about, Edom and shit. It's because a lot of these nations benefited from the hatred of Edom that they put in our face. But here's a book here called The Negro Trailblazers of California. The Negro Trailblazers of California. We have dates as far back as the 1700s too. In this book they mention Estebancico, right? We read about him. So while we are looking and reading of the population being decimated, it wasn't just by Anglo white-looking people. You gotta be mindful of your history, how it was lost, and who it was lost to, by which hands it was lost to. It says here, right? So 1845, the Indian population of California was down to no more than a quarter of what it had been when the Franciscan missions were established in 1769. Now we know Prince Hall Masonry fully in effect. So black and white folks were owning slaves since 1600, 100 years before 1769. That is, it had declined by at least 75% during the 75 years of Spanish rule. In the course of just the next 25 years, under American rule, it would fall by another 80%. The gold rush brought to California a flood of American miners and ranchers who seemed delighted in killing Indians. Miners and ranchers who rose to political power and to prominence, and from those platforms, not only legalizing the enslavement of California Indians. Let me remind you that these people here that are claiming that, they had nothing to do with it, or, the sons of Edom want to erase this history, and the sons of Canaan, they silently write about how they were trailblazers in California. So were you enslaved, or were you a trailblazer? So what did the white man, were you guys good people, or are you trying to hide that history? But as in Colorado and elsewhere, large public campaigns of genocide with the explicitly stated goal of all-out Indian extermination. I've never read a book that has said that the white man and the Indian were planning extermination towards Negroes. Not once have I read a book about that. But I constantly see and read this, that it's you guys against the natives. Governmentally unsanctioned enslavement of the Indians began as California became an American possession and continued for many years. You see this? So a thriving business in hunting and capturing Indian children developed. Newspapers frequently reported sightings of men driving Indian children before them on backcountry roads to the slave markets in Sacramento and in San Francisco. We read about this shit all the fucking time. We hear this from you guys all the fucking time, but we never hear any of this from anybody, ever. The enslavement of our gente. People like to talk about equality, bro. Everybody likes to talk about equality, man. You know what I'm saying? But when you got the opportunity to be equal, you don't share this shit, did you? And you again, some people had the head start. It says here, let's see, but they sometimes climbed as high as $200 each. So do you see this? Like, the kids hunting for children. Bargains could be had in some areas, however, in Colisa County, 1861, where Indian boys and girls aged 3 and 4 were sold at $50 a piece. 1861. You ever see this in movies? No. And you want to know what's so funny? And again, it is what it is, man. But hardly anybody ever cares about this stuff that I bring out. This is why a lot of people don't like this channel. And I believe it's either algorithm or just the fact that you hate hard facts. Because I don't just say, oh, it was the white man that did it. It was the white man that did it. It was the white man that did it. No. It was both of you that did this shit. And both of you have been lying about the fact that this occurred to our people. No, both of you made fucking movies excluding our gente, going through any of this. Oh, you give them a documentary and shut them the fuck up. How's that? That's good enough, right? Guess that's good enough then. Fuck it. Why should I even fucking care then? Since nobody cares, why the fuck should I even care, man? You know what? I'm starting to ask myself that question. I'm really starting to ask myself that very fucking question, bro. Indian boys and girls aged 3 and 4 years were sold at $50 a piece. Especially good little Indians. Or, as the Sacramento Daily Union described them, bright little specimens, they said. Eugenics might even fetch a straight trade for a horse. Given the shortage of women in California during these early years of white settlement, and again, this is where a lot of you silly doves, just look at that it was only white people. Let me remind you that I have a book here called The Negro Trailblazers of California by Delilah Baisley. And they're gleefully talking about their trailblazing over here. They have pictures of soldiers, farmers, lawyers, doctors in California. Constitutional Convention of 1849. Do you understand what we're reading here? But no, a lot of you guys just say that it's just the white guy. It was just the white guy. It says here, given the shortage of women in California during these early years of white settlement and black settlement, white and black settlement, let's fucking keep that real from now on. A likely young girl might cost almost double that of a boy because, as the Marysville Appeal phrases, girls served the double duty of labor and lust. How convenient. How convenient to leave this out of the record books. Prior to 1865, talking about fucking, oh my God, bro, like, this is the shit that pisses me off the most. The fucking nerve of you guys. Slavery was still happening all the way up to 1865 to our indigenous people in the states that were lost to the Americas or North Americans, which involved white and black North Americans. Okay? Not just white people. A lot of people want to hide by the fact that you benefited from white hatred. This is why the right wing, I don't blame them anymore. now I know why they talk about the hypocrisy. See, they're just not willing to admit that y'all been playing this game for quite some time. Oh, just be quiet, bro. Just don't say nothing. It's okay. Let's just keep the wheel going. Let's keep tricking them. Thus inconvenienced, the slave traders had to pursue their prey into the hills. Let me read this. Not surprisingly, the parents of these valuable children could be a problem. Really? The prospect of losing their beloved offspring to slave traders, said Humboldt Times, has the effect of making Indians very shy of coming into the reservations, as they think it is a trick to deprive them of their children. Are they still not separating our children from our gente? Is it still not occurring? Has the effect of making Indians very, and indeed, it often was. So it often was the trick. This inconvenience, the slave traders had to pursue their prey into the hills. So they were tricking them. No. We're just doing reservations. We're making a good home for you. And they would go there, move in, and you could kidnap their children. These were not just white folks, white settlers. They were black settlers and white settlers. When they cornered the objects of their desire, reported the California Superintendent in Indian Affairs of 1854, they frequently murdered the troublesome parents as they were gathering up the children, a tactic that allowed the slavers to sell their little charges as orphans without possibility of contradiction. Should Indian adults attempt to use the California courts to bring such killers to justice, they invariably were frustrated because the law of land prohibited Indians from testifying against whites. How fucking convenient. How convenient. Same book. Just doing the highlighted parts. It says here, as early as 1850, the first session of the California legislature passed a law entitled Act for the Government and Protection of Indians, that in fact did little more than give the imprimatur of legality to the kidnapping and enslavement of native people. See that? That in fact did little more than give the imprimatur of legality to kidnapping and enslaving the native people. Kidnapping and enslaving in 1850 in California. Ever make a movie about that shit? Has anybody ever made a movie about natives being enslaved in shackles? No, you will never fucking see that at all. Why? It's not convenient. It doesn't hit the narrative. You see what I'm saying? You still got to sell the Willie Lynch letter shit. And the white man knows that they're playing a game with you. Dude, I'm telling you, this checkerboard is played out so well, and they're laughing at your faces, gente. Among other provisions, the law prohibited for the forced indenture of any Indian child to any white person who could convince a justice of peace that the child in his possession had been obtained by force. Justice of peace were easily convinced, especially if the abducted child's parents had been murdered or terrorized into silence, and were therefore not on hand to provide contradictory testimony. 1860, do you guys want me to remind you? We knew that the sons of Odin and daughters of Odin were slavers. We knew that. They've been teaching that shit for a long time. They're not afraid to teach that the white man owned slaves. But here are the facts, family. It wasn't just the white man that owned slaves. And white people, by the way, please, just be honest with yourselves. Black folks own slaves just like you. The moment you North America people, right? The moment you guys come to that conclusion that both white and black folks were slavers, you may come into peace. You may stop the bullshit. You may actually clear things up. But until then, you're going to be living in a fog, and you're gonna have branches of idiocy stretching to become natives because they don't fucking know what they want anymore to be. I don't want to be African. I don't want to be European. I'm a native now. All of a sudden, why? Because you don't want to face the facts of your own history. Oh yeah, but you know what? Just go ahead and spit on the fucking history that I'm reading about our people. We've experienced this shit more further than anybody else has. The fucking bullshit stories about, well, nobody else has, like that dumbass guy, black supremacy. We're an Israelite. Shut the fuck up, bro. You're a teacher and you didn't know that y'all own slaves. The problem that whites were facing by this time is that they knew legislation was intended to address was a shortage of Indian labor. About 10,000 of the rapidly dwindling numbers of Indians had been put to forced labor legally under the provisions of 1850 and 1860 laws. Many more, of course, were enslaved without going through the necessities of a justice piece of approval. The shortage of menial workers, despite the large number of Mexicans, Hawaiians, and Asian contract laborers in California, led to humble times to champion 1860 enslavement laws while exclaiming in the editorial, "What a pity the provisions of the law are not extended to greasers, Kanakas, and Asiatics." Which, by the way, all three are Shemitic. That's a fact. But again, we're talking about California. This is not Mississippi. This is not North Carolina. This is not Florida. This is not like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is not in 1600 or 1500 or 1700. This is in 1840 and 50, man. In 1860. It's not that long ago, family. Your great-great-great-great-grandfather went through this shit. Your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother went through this shit. But people like maybe like myself and VTC, our great-great-great-grandfather went through this more likely. Not that far. For some of you guys, it's probably like 5 generations back. No one's ever told you this shit. No one's ever taught you this. No one's ever even brought it out. Matter of fact, BHI never brings this shit out. And if they do, they always blame the white man. But you see, they can't say that because what they claim is that only supposedly they were going through slavery through these times. And that's the bullshit fucking lie. The white man to whom time is money and who labors hard all day to create the comforts of life cannot sit up all night to watch his property. Governor Peter Bernay said, after being robbed a few times, he became desperate and resolved upon a war of extermination. Sounds like Gaza to me. And a war to annihilate the Indians had already begun by then. Bernay recognized, but he added, it must continue to be waged between the races until the Indians become extinct. Now you understand why they don't make movies about you guys? They don't want you to know. Genocidium is real. And they want to get rid of your heritage first. Get rid of your mind and spirit, and the rest is easy. If the Indians did not submit to the white demands to relinquish their lands, he said the state would make war upon the Indians, which must of necessity be of extermination to many of the tribes. Now, you guys know that the sons of Edom never went to war without the sons of Canaan. You understand that, right? White folks never went to war without black folks. They always war or fought together against each other or for each other. This straightforward advocacy of genocide by the highest American officials in the land emergent culture milieu that habitually described the California Indians as ugly, filthy, and inhumane beasts, swines, dogs, wolves, snakes, pigs, baboons, gorillas, and orangutans. Some whites gave the Indians the benefit of the doubt and declared them to be not quite animals, but merely the nearest link of the sort of the quadruped. A feeling of repulsion, just as if I had put my hands on a toad, tortoise, or a huge lizard. This is in 1850s, family. The indigenous population of California plunged from 85,000 to 35,000, a collapse of about 60% within 8 years of the first gubernatorial demands for the Indian destruction. So when you go back into history, you're going to find out that there was white trailblazers, white settler trailblazers, and black settler trailblazers. And these are fucking facts. And you're never going to hear no movie. No one's ever going to write about this shit. Matter of fact, they'll probably, put you in a movie where maybe the aliens are involved. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to real fucking facts, they're never going to teach any of this shit to you. The genocide that occurred to our brothers in California and the enslavement that they went through, even after, by the way, because in the year 1852 and 1853, remember that Mexico had abolished slavery. So Mexico was not enslaving people, yet here in the Americas, white and black folks were enslaving natives. In California, I have proof that shows they've been enslaving them up until 1865. I'm not saying this out of my fucking ass. I literally have the documentation. If anybody want to dispute that, I can show it. The last thing I have, I'm sorry, how can I say this? The one thing I have is information. That's one thing I have. That's one thing I don't like. I may not be eloquent in my words. I'm not that highly educated. I didn't go to college. That, you know what I'm saying? English was my second language. Yes, I understand that shit. But I'll tell you this right now, that I do have is fucking information. And one thing I do have is the ability to research, and I know how to read, and I know how to think. That I do have.
To my next reason, stereotyping and racial profile. Once Americans painted Mexicans as illegals, the next step was super easy. Turn that image into a stereotype. And that stereotype got baked into every single thing. The news, movies, and even jokes that people tell at work. Mexicans became the go-to face of illegal immigration. Even though immigrants come from all over the world, this is what they were painted as. Think about airport security. If your name is Smith and you got a sunburn from Cancun, you're waved through. But if your name is Hernandez, suddenly you're randomly selected. That's not random, it's racial profiling. ICE and local cops built this whole system around this. There were traffic stops where people get asked for papers, raids at factories where every worker who looks Mexican gets lined up, and school kids hearing slurs from teachers that should have known better. That stereotype gives a cover to all of it. This isn't new. Back in the 80s and 90s, Hollywood has its hand in this mess too. Every action flick had the same type of villain. A Mexican drug runner with a mustache driving a beat up truck. Just turn on Miami Vice reruns and you'll see it in plain day. And what happened was that image sank deep into the culture. So when politicians shouted about bad hombres, it felt believable. And it felt believable because these people, like everyone, already had the stereotype in their head. And stereotypes make it much easier for law enforcement. Instead of looking at real data, tracking real threats, ICE leans on appearance. I mean, who looks Mexican, who sounds Mexican, those are the ones who get stopped first. It's just straight up lazy policing. And it's straight up lazy policing disguised as national security. The wild part, this stereotype is so strong that even US citizens get caught in it. There are a ton of real stories about people born in Texas or California being detained and sent back to Mexico because they look illegal. So when we talk about Mexicans being targeted, it's not about law and order or about making things safer. It's about an image that was built and sold and then enforced. This is an image so powerful that it puts millions of people under suspicion at any given time without any proof whatsoever. Now, I didn't grow up in the USA, but I
It's true. So much so that a lot of you guys didn't even realize that there was such a thing as Juan Crow. Yeah. This is from, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, hold on. I believe Harvest and Empire. Juan Crow in Texas. Segregation of ethnic Mexicans in Texas occurred as early as the late 19th century. Initially, segregation appeared in residential districts of Texas cities, which featured an African-American section of town, a Mexican quarter, and the remaining area for the white population. But the late 19th century, ethnic Mexicans were encountering segregation in public institutions, such as schools, restaurants, and hotels. Schools began following Jim Crow practice in most Texas cities by dividing into all Mexicans, all black, and all white schools. By the early 20th century, Anglo businesses posted signs with such warnings as "No Mexicans and no dogs." Anglo-Texans redoubled their efforts to segregate those seen as non-white. Mexican Americans in Texas were especially offended. Their determination to protest inclined them to emphasize the quote-unquote American dimensions of their identity rather than the Mexican dimension. That's why a lot of you guys who are in Texas, you got self-hatred. A big-ass tompal in your forehead, bro, and you guys have self-hatred because you are very insecure, and that's called generational curses. The spiritual insecurity, whatever the hell you call it. A lot of you guys don't even want to admit that this is who you are. They also emphasized that they were white by law, by U.S. law. You see this? Thus, Anglo in Texas had no right to impose segregationist ordinance and practices upon them. At the turn of the 20th century, whiteness in Texas was not, let me see this real quick, was not ultimately determined just by the color of one's skin, but rather by a formula derived from a medley of categories regarding one's race, ancestry, and cultural characteristics, and from the very vagaries of American law. See that? By most Anglo standards, Mexicans were not found to be non-white. Were found to be non-white. In one respect, however, they had an exceptionally strong case to be considered white, the Treaty of Guadalupe, meaning that if you were technically here, well, here, let me just read. Declared that Mexican citizens who found themselves on the U.S. side of the border following an annexation had the option to remain in the country and become U.S. citizens. At the same time, U.S. naturalization law declared that anyone born on foreign soil desiring to become a citizen had to be free and white. Interesting, right? Thus, if a Mexican were declared eligible for citizenship by the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, then they must be white, at least by law. This is exactly what a U.S. federal court ruled in 1897. Ethnic Mexicans lost no time declaring that their eligibility for U.S. citizenship and their whiteness rendered segregation measures passed against them inappropriate and illegal. This meant that Anglo-Texans had to find a non-rational basis and justification for segregation. Now, let's keep this in mind, family, because a lot of people criticize you Mexicans. But yet in 1890-something, the same year, there was something, actually way before that, they had something called black colleges, as well as white colleges. I didn't see no Mexican colleges. So before you go off and open your mouth and shit about complaining, let's be factual regarding the benefits that a lot of you guys have carried to the power and hatred of somebody that looks like this guy. Appreciate your video though, bro. You know, I'm not trying to label you as that, but that's the fact.
I know that's not the type of place that they promote themselves to be. This brings us into the media narratives. If stereotypes are the sea, the media is the water. For decades, TV and newspapers have fed the US population the same storyline, that Mexicans equal crime, drugs, and danger. Flip through the channels in the 80s and 90s, and it was nonstop fear. News anchors with serious voices warned about illegal aliens flooding into the border. Sounds familiar? While footage of dusty crossings rolled in the background as the stage of a crime drama, like it was some sort of crime drama. Politicians loved this script. No matter what side of the aisle they were on, a lot of them used this idea. And Hollywood backed it up too. Movies tossed in Mexican character drug dealers, gang members, or comic reliefs. Rarely heroes, rarely leaders, rarely normal people with jobs and families. By the time the 90s hit, this media loop has done its job. To the average viewer, Mexicans weren't neighbors. They were the issue. And once that narrative stuck, it didn't matter what the truth was. The statistics could show that immigrants commit fewer crimes than US citizens. But that didn't matter to anybody really. The TV said otherwise. So of course they had to be right. And when the show Cops ran episodes showing raids in Latino neighborhoods, that ran deeper than any data chart could. A headline about hardworking farmhands won't grab views like a headline about drug mules at the border. And everything in America became this, everything needs to be sold as a tabloid gossip. Drama first, and the truth maybe last, if they had to tell the truth. This cycle trained the public to see Mexicans as a threat before they even met one in real life. By the time ICE grew into a giant force, the audience was already primed. Most people didn't question raids because that story has been drilled into their heads for years. So the media didn't just report the news, it wrote a script. And this script made targeting look normal. And once people actually bought the story, the system had free reign to just keep running it. Now let's get into convenience and visibility. Targeting Mexicans.
I don't know how else how clear you can be with those facts. Well, let me go back into a little history. I've showed you guys this page before. Here, let me see what you guys got going on before I continue. Let's see. Magonistas of Texas were left by hanging by everyone they were. Let me see. Were left by hanging by everyone they was fighting for what they for the FBI and the post office started running up and hanging Mexicans. No one helped them. Yeah, matter of fact, you know what? Here, let me show you this page. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll kind of flip it around. This is from the same book, The Burning of Antonio Rodriguez. In Southwest, lynching has a strong and dark history. Michael Pfeiffer explains that collective violence within the borderlands regions after the 1840s, remember, this is still a country of slavery at this time, stemmed from white Americans' efforts to achieve a racial and cultural conquest of Native Americans and Hispanics that consciously supplemented recently established American criminal justice institutions and inadequate instruments for racial mastery. I find it so ironic. Again, this is why these people hate a lot, because they're tired of being blamed for the job that they didn't do 100% themselves. No, these guys were helped. So from now on, when you start looking at who owned slaves and who was benefiting from owning lands that didn't belong to them, it stemmed from white and black Americans. Their efforts to achieve a racial and cultural conquest of Native Americans and Hispanics, who is trying to claim that they're Mexicans now, that they're Mayas now, that they're Incas now, because Julio Miados showed them some fucking pictures. Who is claiming that they're natives now because their ancestors have been here for more than 200 years? The same people. So one likes to hide from the shield of, hey, these guys are racist, but you benefited from their hatred towards us. And then when you dig into that history, you realize, you know what? You helped them. Listen to this. Carrie McWilliams believes that this lawlessness resulted in more Mexicans being lynched in the Southwest between 1865 and 1920 than blacks in other parts of the South. Let that fucking sink in. More Mexicans being lynched in Southwest between 1865 and 1920 than blacks in other parts of the South. So after the Civil War, compared to the lynchings over there, what was going on over here? We read earlier in this book in 1840, they were enslaving our native brothers and sisters, as well as lynching them. Of course, killing the parents when they wanted to kidnap your babies. Historians William Kerrigan and Clive Webb created a database listing all known lynchings of ethnic Mexicans in the United States between 1848 and 1928. They argue that the lynchings of ethnic Mexicans in the United States far exceeds that of any other immigrant group. It is compatible with African Americans lynching, at least on a per capita basis. Do you know what that means? So, like, for example, the percentage stays the same regardless of the size of the population. So let's say you have a town of 100 people. The percentage of lynchings to those people is the same percentage as if there was 1,000 people going through the same experience. That's it. Per capita, meaning per percentage wise. So let's say if I want to multiply 6% by $100, I'll get the answer to the percentage, right? And if I want to multiply 6% of $1,000, it'll be the same concept, family. That's what I'm saying. The answer, the numbers always equal the same, no matter what. Kerrigan and Webb found that the mobs most believed they were policing the region and targeting Mexicans for suspected crimes of murder or theft more than any other reason. The decade of 1910 witnessed more lynchings of ethnic Mexicans than the previous 30 years combined. It almost like
I have concepts of a plan.
Like look, listen. This is why the methodical the method of the sons of Odin. It should not cross your mind that there's a lot of people that benefited from the method of the sons of Odin.
That's right.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
How funny that people love to clear up this history. People love to ignore this history. They don't make movies about it, do they? Have they ever? Have they written a book? Have they ever gone through that? Maybe I should do it. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody's doing it. Nah, but you guys want to talk about cholo shit, right? Or how the movies are, or las pinches novelas, or fucking soccer, or boxing. I'm still baffled by how some people get entertained by listening to some that are just, they're not providing you guys with any solid information. It's just fucking talk. I cannot wrap my mind around that. The historians claim that this increase correlated with the increase in the numbers of migrant laborers arriving in the U.S. during those years. However, the first decade of the 20th century witnessed an unprecedented influx of Mexican migrant workers into the U.S., and the number of known lynchings of ethnic Mexicans actually decreased from 24 cases in 1890 to 8 in the year between 1901 and 1910, only to spike during the decades of 1910 to 124 known cases. Thus, something much more powerful was responsible for the violence that ensued between 1910 and 1920. Some factors that infuriated Anglo-Texans sufficiently to persuade them to revert to the 19th century strategy of frontier justice lynching. Frontier justice lynching. How does that ring a bell? It's hardcore, huh? Let's go.
Mexicans isn't only about history or media. It's also about convenience. Mexicans are the largest immigrant group in the USA, with a population of over 37 million in the USA. As I speak, that means if the government wants to show results on immigration, Mexicans are the easiest group to target. They're the easiest group to point at. And ultimately, more numbers equal more arrests, which equals more detainees and deportations. It's like fishing in a stocked pond. The border itself makes things even simpler. Mexico is right there, sharing close to 2,000 miles of land with the USA. And if someone's detained, ICE doesn't need to arrange a long flight to another continent. They can put people on a bus and drive them across the border and call it successful. It's quick, it's cheap, and it's efficient. Compare that to deporting someone to China or Nigeria, where the paperwork, flights, and costs pile up. Mexicans are basically the low-hanging fruit for lazy law enforcement and greed. This convenience isn't just some small detail that is a coincidence. It shapes entire policies in the US. Fast-track deportation agreements with Mexico lets ICE process a huge number of people in record time. No other immigrant group can be targeted at this scale. It's like fast food, mass production, quick services, and maximum output. And the system just eats it all up. This system that we call democracy. Communities in border states feel this more than anywhere else. Families in Texas, Arizona, and California know that the local sheriffs often team up with ICE, running these traffic stops and raids that hit Mexicans the hardest. It's not because they're more illegal. It's because they're nearby, visible, and easy to grab. So when we ask why Mexicans are getting targeted more than others, part of this answer is just simple math. They're the biggest group, the closest group, and the most visible group. That makes them the most convenient target for a system that benefits from numbers and headlines.
Damn. Viva Mexico, cabrón! Sorry about that. Makes it.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
What better way to put it? What better way to express it? Maybe I shouldn't even get mad at the fact that you guys don't give a shit. Not the ones that, not you brothers and that you guys are listening, but just people that don't care. Dog. You guys always want to talk about raza and chicanismo and shit. And fuck, you fucking hypocrites. Fucking hypocrites, bro. That's what I say. Or maybe you're just afraid to bring out facts. That's probably why you just want to talk about everything else but reality. Maybe that's what it is, bro. Maybe that's what you guys are. You guys are just fucking cowards and shit. And you don't want to bring up real true facts. Or some of you, who voted for Trump because, you thought he was going to do good for you, but you didn't know about this shit, did you? It's all good, man. This is from, I believe, Open Veins of Latin America. On page 60, it says, the roots of anti-Mexican prejudice. Claims of Mexican inferiority came in many forms. Anglos argued that Mexicans were intellectually inferior, largely because the Mexicans they were most frequently encountered in the border society were migrant workers whom they referred to as peons, just like he was saying, it's convenience. Anglo-Texans subjugated these workers in Anglo society, yet at the same time, they needed their labor. These workers built the increasingly important railroads that connected the eastern seaboard to the mineral-rich western frontiers. So much for certain people claiming that they built America. Implemented new irrigation technology for the agriculture. Performed dangerous mining jobs. Most of these men and women spoke very little English, and some were not literate in Spanish either. You see what I'm saying? At least in 1910, only 32% of Mexican adults in Mexico could read. That's a fucking lie. It was as low as 5%. The increase started after 1920, 1930, after Pancho Villa's war, civil war. So that right there is a blatant lie. Right there. Or incorrect. Please correct that. Because you sound stupid by doing that shit. Many Anglo-Texans also viewed Mexican migrants because guess what, family? We read that in September 7th of 1900, it was still prohibited to even read the Bible by the Christians, the Cristos in Mexico. You understand that? So how in the world could there be 30% of literacy when like 10 years later? That's fucking impossible. Get out of your mind. Stop lying about our history. Many Anglo-Texans also viewed Mexican migrant workers as unhealthy, insanitary, and susceptible to communicable disease. Didn't Donald Trumpeta say that, they're sending us their asylum people, they're crazy, they're sick, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they're saying. To this day, they're still doing it. The press often reported cases of smallpox among Mexican migrants as a warning and concerned citizens who wrote to newspapers, their congressmen, and the state government. What a fucking sad story that they go and use this goddamn fucking nasty disease that we never brought. And that's okay to say, smallpox among Mexicans, right? But the moment that I say, hey, certain black people brought smallpox to the Americas, I get flagged, man. They remove my statements, my comments. Hypocritical, man. This is not, you're not an equitable nation. Neither one of you are. In June 1911, people wrote to Governor Oscar Colquitt demanding that he can reconsider the state plan to establish a leprosarium at the Fort Ringgold, Texas. The citizens of nearby town of Rio Grande adamantly opposed this colony due to the large number of Mexicans in the region who Anglos believe would be vulnerable to infections. Stock Country Judge J.R. Monroe charged that his county had spent over $8,000 in the previous 4 years defending his border against the influx of every contagious disease coming to us from Mexico. A separate letter, Judge Monroe argued that it was common knowledge that Mexicans were highly susceptible to contagious diseases and that the ignorance and superstition prevailing among the lower class of Mexican people led them to have no fear or dread. Yeah, but let's talk about shit that don't matter. Why not? It's not like it matters. Why should it matter?
Let me explain a little bit about legacy of Operation Wetback. In the 1950s, the US launched one of the biggest mass deportations ever. This name, though, it tells you how ugly it really was. Operation Wetback? Are you kidding me? This goal for this horrible operation was simple. Sweep up Mexicans and ship them out, ship them south, get rid of them. By the time it ended in 1954, more than 1 million Mexicans were deported from the USA. And here's the kicker. Thousands of them were born there. They were citizens, carrying papers, speaking English. But it didn't matter to Americans. If you looked Mexican, you were targeted. Same old story. This operation set the playbook for what came next. Armies of agents riding through neighborhoods, rounding up farm workers, loading buses, and calling it law enforcement. Sounds familiar. The same system that ICE uses today. It's just that ICE has better technology and bigger budgets. The stories from that era are brutal. Families were split overnight. Workers were dumped into some random town with no money and no place to call home. There's also stories about some deportees that were dropped in the desert without food or water. Can you imagine this? And the thing is too, is that similar things to this are even happening today. Operation Wetback burned the idea into the minds of US population that Mexicans were the natural target for deportations, for mass deportation. Politicians brag about the numbers, but not the numbers of lives destroyed, but the numbers of people they round up, locked up, and shipped out. The operation made Mexicans the default immigrant in the eyes of law enforcement. If you're looking to crack down, you don't even ask who's illegal. You sweep first and then sort the problems out later. The shadow of that operation still lingers to today. Decades later, when politicians push for raids, walls, or tougher enforcement, they're not inventing anything new. They're recycling an old script. So when people wonder why ICE is so aggressive with Mexicans, the answer goes back more than 70 years. The system was built on a mass deportation experiment that never really ended. It's still going on, and it probably will still go on in the future. Just super sad. Now let's talk about political scapegoating. Every election season, there's a lot of politicians that pull out the same playbook to blame Mexicans. That's a playbook. Simple. Sad. Now let's
And I'm using this as a way where you can hear it, see it, and read it with me. We're going to read a couple pages here, and then we're going to continue with the video. This is from the same book, page 5. It says here, human murder by poverty in North America is secret. every year without making a sound. 3 Hiroshima bombs exploded over the communities that have become accustomed to suffering with clenched teeth. This systematic violence is not apparent, but is real and constantly increasing. Its Holocaust are not known in the sensational press, but in food and agricultural organization statistics. It says here, Latin America, the World Bank, he says, will give priority in its loans to continue that implements birth control plans. McNair notes with regret that the brains of the poor do 25% less thinking. That's why the first video I showed you with the dude Charlie Kirk, what he said, right? Because they look at you like animals. This whole movement is all based off that. It's not just him saying it. Everybody agrees with that. Right-wingers. Candace Owens even said it in one of her videos. I have a video, which I matter of fact, TikTok put me down because apparently I was being offensive, yet I was using the same words that she was using, and TikTok put my shit down. Not because of the video that she said, because of what I said. It's fucking pathetic, bro. Let us act on the fact that less than $5 invested in population control is worth $100 invested in economic growth. That's Dwight Eisenhower. I'm sorry, that's Lyndon B. Johnson, my bad. Dwight Eisenhower prophesied that if the world's inhabitants continue multiplying at the same rate, not only would the danger of revolution be increased, but there would also be a lowering of living standards for all people, including his own. That's the replacement theory concept. They don't say like this guy said it, but I mean, he pretty much said it. You guys are cucarachas to them. Various U.S. missions have sterilized thousands of women in Amazonia. Various U.S. missions, like USA Aid, like that. Although this is the least populated habitable zone in our planet, most Latin American countries have no real surplus of people. On the contrary, they have too few. Brazil has 38 times fewer inhabitants per square mile than Belgium. Paraguay has 49 times fewer than England. Peru has 32 times fewer than Japan. Haiti and El Salvador, the human antheps of Latin America, have lower population densities than Italy. The pretext invokes are in an insult to the intelligence. The real intentions anger us. Less than half the territory of Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, and Ecuador, Paraguay, and Venezuela have no inhabitants at all.
Talk about political scapegoating. Every election season, there's a lot of politicians that pull out the same playbook to blame Mexicans. That's a playbook, simple. Do you need to distract from a bad economy? Point at the border. Need to fire up or rally a crowd? Shout, illegals are stealing our jobs. Need funding for more police? Somehow tie it to Mexico. It's that easy. It's one of Washington's oldest tricks. Back in the 1980s, Reagan talked, though, on immigration to sell himself as the law and order president. In the 90s, Clinton pushed mass deportations to prove that Democrats could be tough too. And by the 2000s, Bush was running ads warning about porous borders, that there's holes in the borders and people are getting through, basically. Then came Trump, calling Mexicans criminals and bad hombres. Different decades, different faces, different presidents, but the same problem, the same scapegoat. Because they're visible. They're the biggest group. And the media already primed the public to see them as the problem. For a politician, it's low risk and really high reward. You get these applause and claps for sounding super tough. And you don't need to explain the real reason jobs are disappearing, like outsourcing, automation, or greedy corporations and government printing of money. Blaming Mexicans is just way simpler. And people like to understand simple problems. They don't like complicated ones. But why Mexicans? This tactic isn't new. In the 70s, politicians were already warning about waves of Mexicans. The words changed over time, but the playbook was the same. Use fear of Mexicans to win votes, and it worked. Polls show immigration spikes as the top concern on every election cycle. Wild. Even when actual immigration numbers are down. Why? Because fear is pumped through speeches, debates, and headlines until it feels like a real crisis. Mexicans become the face of every problem, whether it's drugs, crime, or unemployment. Seems like they're just stacking things over time to blame them for everything. Eventually, the US doesn't want to blame themselves for their own problems. So if you notice that Mexicans are popping up in every political debate, that's not a coincidence. It's a real strategy. And this strategy has been running for decades. It's like an endless campaign commercial that just goes on repeat forever and ever. Now we need...
That's a good point. This is from Oppression, Privilege, and Resistance. I believe this is page 89, my bad. From this is they're referencing a book called Occupied America by Rodolfo Acuña. Okay, it says here, central to the thesis of this monograph is my contention that the conquerors of the Southwest created a colonial situation in traditional sense, with the Mexican land and the population being controlled by an imperialistic United States. Further, I contend that this colonization, with variation, is still with us today. Thus, I referred to the colony initially in the traditional definition of the term, and later taking into account the variation as an internal colony. From the Chicano perspective, it is obvious that these two types of colonies are a reality. In discussion with the non-Chicano friends, however, I have encountered considerable resistance. In fact, even colleagues sympathetic to the Chicano cause vehemently deny that Chicanos are or have been colonized. How many people show up to this channel and try to say that we're supposed to be, conquistadors, Spaniards and shit with their stupid ass fucking theory? Several. That's what they're saying. That we didn't go through none of this shit. When they make comments like that, that's why me particularly, I take not offense in a sense, but it's like I listen to it on a much more with much more depth, because when I hear that talk, I think of history. And it's so stretched in my mind, in spirit, that I'm like, bro, you're missing a lot in your statements. You have no idea how you're erasing the experience of people. They admit that the exploitation and discrimination, but they add that this has been the experience of most Americans, right? Especially Europeans and Asian immigrants and Black Americans. Well, I agree the exploitation and racism has victimized most outgroups in the U.S. This does not preclude the reality of the colonial relationship between the Anglo-American privilege and the Chicano. I feel that the parallels between the Chicano experience in the U.S. and colonization of other third world people are too similar to dismiss. For example, Gaza, attend to the definition of colonialization of the following condition. I put some scripts in there. The land of one people is invaded by people from another country, who's later used military force to maintain control. The land of one people is invaded by people from another country. Deuteronomy 28:49 talks about that. A nation from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flight, a nation whose language you won't understand will come and conquer you. The original inhabitants become subject to the conquerors involuntarily. Verse 48 is you basically will be in slavery until it's perpetual. Those that come from afar are going to they're going to put you below them. That's why they say that we are the trasero of the Anglo. Baruch 3:8 talks about that slavery is basically taxation, like encomienda shit. Number 3, the conquered have an alien culture and government imposed upon them. Lamentation 5:2 talks about that aliens have taken over them. Lamentation 5:2, the conquered become the victim of racism and cultural genocide and are regulated to a submerged status. That could basically be Deuteronomy 28:43 and 44. So you can use that too, 20 and 22, because of how they're, how they're dealing with you in the courthouses, how they're constantly, like, for example, you go to court, try to do the right thing. Let's say you're trying to get your papers right. All of a sudden, ICE shows up and just arrests you and shit. You're a victim of racism, cultural genocide. Basically, you look the part, so I'm going to arrest you. Cultural genocide, get out of here. You don't belong in this country. And regulated it because you're an illegal alien. You're a criminal. That's Deuteronomy 28, verse 22 for sure. The conquered are rendered politically and economically powerless. Through laws, Daniel 8:25, and through laws, I think it's Daniel 8:25 or 7:25, that through laws they will, through peace they will change laws that will oppress you. The conqueror feels they have a mission in occupying the area in question and believe that they have undeniable privilege by virtue of their conquest. We read earlier that they implemented Deuteronomy 7:6, right? Or 7:1 or 6:1, whatever they want, which was that the Puritans said that they were going to hand over the heathen to you and destroy them and utterly take their land. These points also apply to the relationship between Chicanos and Anglos in Mexico, Northwest Territory. Let's continue.
need to talk about economic inequality. One of the biggest reasons Mexicans get targeted is also the most practical. A lot of them in the US are stuck unwillingly at the bottom of the economic ladder. Low wages, hard labor, and no safety net. That makes them both essential and exploitable. And undocumented workers are a dream for shady bosses. They can pay them less than minimum wage, skip health benefits, and threaten deportation if anyone complains. Just imagine working 12-hour shifts in the field and it's backbreaking. And your boss says to you, you don't like it? Then I'll call ICE and they'll come get you. That's the truth for some people. This system traps them in a prison of silence, in suffering. This isn't by accident. Industries from farming to construction to restaurants rely on the imbalance to survive. The economy saves billions by underpaying Mexicans. That's why you can buy strawberries in December for a few bucks or get your house remodeled for a fraction of the cost. It's just straight up exploitation, and it runs deeper than wages. Many Mexicans live in neighborhoods with underfunded schools, few jobs, and few opportunities. Let's not forget consistent police presence. They're boxed into the system that profits off cheap labor and punishes them for being illegal. It's actually a setup that keeps them from being able to climb out of it, traps them in there. And yet, whenever wages stagnate or jobs vanish, politicians blame Mexicans, not themselves. Not the real problem. Not that the companies ship factories overseas. Not that the CEOs are pocketing record profits and bonuses. Mexicans become a scapegoat, even while being the backbone of many industries. So the inequality isn't random. It's wired into the system. It rewards those who exploit people with fewer opportunities and security than the rest of us. And Mexicans are kept in this position where they can be used and abused, and overall blamed for all the problems. That imbalance feeds the cycle of targeting and keeping power in the hands of those who benefit the most.
I think that's loud and clear. It should be loud and clear. We're almost done.
Run through the ground. Then it's past the hour.
I want to show this to you guys. Missing alligator Alcatraz prisoners. Let me speed it up. And we're almost through. Appreciate you guys sticking around. Thank you. Let's go.
And Miccosukee tribe, excuse me. And a federal judge ordered that the facility be shut down on August 21st. They were given 60 days to dismantle the camp, and they didn't wait. They started to divide up the detainees, and some were sent to ICE-run prisons, others were deported. They said that the camp would be empty by the end of August. But the appeals court reopened the camp on September 4th. And so now only about two-thirds of the detainees, or only about a third of the detainees are still accounted for. About two-thirds have vanished. And it turns out that 800 have no record at all of where they went, apparently. They vanished from the system like they were never there at all. Another 450 are listed with no location and only the message, call ICE for details. 1,200 human beings vanished? What is going on here? ICE blames the state, Florida blames ICE, and no one is providing names. These families are just like bereft. It's, truly baffling. Then on top of that, Jimmy Kimmel has been suspended for calling the Kirk shooter MAGA, at least theoretically. I think we all realize that the reason Jimmy Kimmel got suspended was because, this company wants to do a merger. But MAGA supporters have done apparently the same thing. In June, when Melissa Hortman was assassinated and her husband, Donald Trump Jr., went on the air and said that Mr. Bolter, who was the shooter, the assassin, said that he was, quote, seems to be a leftist and is a Democrat. This was Don Jr. Bolter had drawn up a list of all the Democrats he was going to assassinate. He'd gone to several houses of elected Democrats. He had shot the one husband and wife. They survived. He killed, of course, Melissa Hortman and her husband. Elon Musk accused the left of being, quote, murderously violent, despite the shooter likely being on the right. This was when Melissa Hortman was assassinated. Laura Loomer called for Tim Walz to be, quote, detained by the FBI and interrogated. Mike Lee tweeted out, this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. So if Jimmy Kimmel is being taken off the air for saying that the shooter was was MAGA, when it appears he wasn't, although we still don't know for sure. He grew up certainly in a MAGA family, but you can't guilt by association. But if Jimmy Kimmel is being taken off the air for saying that the shooter in that case was MAGA, then why wasn't Don Jr. and Laura Loomer and Mike Lee and all these folks called out for saying that the guy who assassinated Melissa Hortman was a lefty, when it turns out he wasn't. He was a hardcore righty. And now finally, in this Nazi-like moment, it appears that the FBI is preparing to designate transgender people as violent extremists. They, Attorney General Pam Bondi said after the Kirk murder, are, quote, putting this crazy ideology in our schools. She said this is a cult of gender ideology and called it the radical left. 2 days before Kirk was killed, Trump condemned transgender insanity. He said the radicals on the left, they want transgender for everyone. So, and it looks like they're trying to come up with a new designation. They're going to call them nihilistic violent extremists, NVEs, which is replacing the designation that the Biden administration had come up with for these, right-wing shooters, which was called the anti-authority, anti-government violent extremists, AGAAVE, because that included the January 6th rioters and the Proud Boys and all these other right-wing groups. So they've come up with this new one. And of course, on his first day in office, Trump had signed an executive order saying that sex is, quote, an immutable biological reality of male and female. So here we are. This is the State Department has stopped issuing passports with an X. Additional executive orders have been signed to restrict access to gender-affirming care for minors, which the administration labels chemical mutilation. Ken Klippenstein is writing about this. He's with the Midas Touch folks over on Substack, kenklippenstein.com. Aaron in the Morning also writing about it. Aaron in the Morning over on Substack. This is wild. I mean, they're going after trans people. You'll recall the first thing the Nazis did, the first thing Hitler did was go after trans people. Magnus, what was his name? Hirschfeld. His Sexology Institute in Berlin. That was the first place it was where they burned all those books. Are we there yet? It's increasingly appearing like it, and I think average people are figuring it out. What say you? It's Anything Goes Friday. I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
And I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you. All right, we're doing the Free Speech TV fundraiser right now. It's
Let me do this, family. Let me play a video. I was trying to download this video. I don't know why I can't save it. So let me play this other one in the meantime, and then we'll call it a day. Give me a second. Look, I'm really happy about the fact that I've stood my ground since I can remember, man. Since 2016, I saw this crazy ass wave coming. I got involved with, I guess you could say, with this understanding more in 2018. I started this channel in 2022. And I never turned my back on my people.
Que yo encontré una voz de ternura que me llena de placer. Cuando la oigo hablar, con ella me enamoré.
Short video, man, but it says, glad to say I've never switched upon my people for cheaper groceries. What's that fucking guy, American Cholo? Oh, I voted for Trump because I want Trump to help me. Shut up. You don't even know what the fuck you voted for. We're almost done. I got just this little short stuff to show you real quick here. Check this out. I thought this was... Hey, thank you, brother, for sending me this, by the way.
Here it goes. Jesus, I want my birthright back because I'm a descendant of Esau. I am a descendant of Edomites that rejected their birthright.
This is not...
So I will do anything that you want me to do, that you demand me to do.
Yeah, and we'll end it with this, and we out.
Going to be easy for me to do or for me to say. And I know that it's too late, and I know that I was wrong. I am sorry, and I know that it's too late, but I do want to apologize. I was raised with a narrative. I believed people in my life who were liars. I voted for a pedophile. I stood for genocide. I was racist, I was sexist, I was ignorant. I put people in harm's way, and I am sorry. and I am working to change. But being made fun of and being told I was wrong over and over again put me in a very painful position where instead of owning that cognitive dissonance and confronting myself with the facts that were being laid out in front of me time and time again, I dug down deeper. Instead, I put my heels in and I supported a PDF file.
Yeah, it is so sad to see, but listen, you got so many MAGA.
Yeah, well, you know, it is what it is. All right, fam. Appreciate you guys for being supportive. Let's see if we can keep fighting, man. We'll see you guys next week. Stay strong. Shit, stay alive. And enjoy your families this weekend. More important than anything. And you guys, hold on. Let me pause this real quick because it always starts all loud. I don't like that. Let me end it with like a song, and then we out, man. Matter of fact, just 2 short ones. It's one of my favorite. Anyhow, good night. Oh, have a good day.
Yeah, man. Respect and love from the world, nigga. Show them. Più nigga on a microphone. Can't wait to sit number 15. Rock you in the studio. Bomba clap.
¿De qué manera sufre el alma cuando alguien se va? No hay medicina que cure esa larga enfermedad. La vitamina de la vida en esta sociedad es tan divina que por nombre tiene libertad. Libérate de la mentira que está por llegar. Mide tu orgullo antes de empezar a hablar. Cierra la puerta a quien no merezca entrar, porque hay mucho que se fue y sueña con regresar. Hablemos en silencio y así no me mentirás. El poder de la palabra muere cuando hablan de más. No me fío de oraciones que se dicen por detrás. Si me miras a los ojos no te mentiré jamás. Que besar por besar es jugar por jugar. Y vivir sin amor es vivir sin amar. Solo queda la fe, solo queda soñar. Ponte de pie, ready para luchar. Some love, I can just smoke and there are some love them. I can just smoke and there are some love. I remember no fire, no girl. Ribby dead.
Cali with a farmer soul, yeah.
¿De cuánto tiempo hablamos cuando hablamos de querer? Si la mitad lo malgastamos solo en comprender. ¿De qué manera es más fácil aprender? Que nacemos para ganar y morimos al perder. No puedo dejar de animarte, que cuando te caigas debes levantarte. Llegué para contarte que no todo artista muere por su arte. Traigo el honor de un humano con valor que utiliza poesía para respirar mejor. Escribo prosa para vengar al amor y recuerda aquella rosa que tiraron al contenedor. ¿Dónde se quedó el amor? Hey, I no voy a sit on no microphone forever, never. Love, I can just smoke and the light, some love them. I Rastafari, my life, some love. I remember no fire, no burn. Ribby day.
I live with a farmer soul, yeah. Reggae man, a farmer warrior, warrior day. Not a really thing. Oh, yeah, man. Si se piensa que la música es un juego, lo lleva claro, hermano. Desde España, internacional, bomba, clack, you, Lego. Not so really easy, no. Pure nigga on a microphone. Hey, tell us what, tell us anything. Tell if I'm a Rasta feeling on my sin. Hey, more love. Yeah, man, real bomba clock and I set the volume 8. This is the music from the my niggas. Yeah, man. Oh, ribby damn. Hey. La. Lord. Human attribute from black or red. Hey, hey, hey. Broken microphone, mystic lover sound, a dream of soul. Will my head alone, living in Zion, but Babylon. Broken microphone, mystic lover sound, a dream of soul. Will my head alone, living in Zion, but Babylon. Por soñar soñé que todo cambiaría, por pensar pensé, luchar a sangre fría sin perder la fe, viviendo el día a día, más con sentimiento que marcó mi sinfonía. Darle pan al que no puede comer, darle bendición al que sepa renacer. 3000 errores solemos cometer, pero solo un gran hombre lo sabrá reconocer. Y me di cuenta hoy de tantas cosas, algunas crudas, otras bastante hermosas. Solo más sabios, personas poderosas, no aquellos bastardos que destrozan nuestras prosas. Es la perdición, mala situación de manchar tu corazón por tu mala acción. Dame una razón para darte mi perdón. Siento que tu alma se consume como el humo de este blon. Derramo poesía, arte mensajero que reclamo cada día. Pretendo ser sincero, más comparto mi alegría con todo caballero que mantenga la presión cuando andamos bajo cero. Sentimientos perdidos con calma, malos actos mancharon tu alma. No pide perdón quien dispara el arma, no sabe que un ladrón se bate con el karma. Broken microphone, mystic lover sound, a dream of soul. Real my head alone, living in Zion, but Babylon. Broken microphone, mystic lover sound, a dream of soul. Real my head alone, living in Zion, but Babylon. Wanna ganja respect from Volumen A. My niggas on Volumen A, this is key on the studio respect. Alright, alright, alright. Bad boy kills, criminal of sound and rich. Money is a gun for me. Respect the nation. Below the time like this. Bad boy kills. Criminal of sound and rich. Money is a gun for me. Respect the nation. Below the time like this. Bad boy kills. Criminal of sound and rich. Money is a gun for me. Respect the nation. Oh. La 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 la. When I got just smoking from the studio up the on. And when I can just your nigga on the floor. When I live a sound. Oh them, ah. Bye bye rhythm, bye bye sound in
Ical, hijo, abre los ojos. Tu cuerpo se queda con nosotros, pero tu espíritu debe seguir. Busca la luz. Aléjate de las sombras. Deja que nuestro dolor sea tu fuerza. Desde aquí iluminamos tu camino. Lucha como nosotros antes la palmera grande. yo soy tú. Tú eres yo. La muerte que hoy nos separa, mañana volverá a unirnos. Eres libre, hijo.